الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس.
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much, आप सबका taking the time out. I know everyone is so busy, but at the same time, I think this is the most ultimate kind of an activity which should be happening in country right now. We go with a very quick round of introductions, or I'll just lay out the agenda for what we want to do, what we want to achieve, and then we just open up the discussion. So everyone knows me. I'm Bilal Anwar.
Ali Tawqir Sheikh.
Ishmala Kaga Sheikh. Heba Siddiqui from Islamic League.
Asif Shirazi from Islamic League.
Javed Gilani, Muslim Hands.
Just Malcolm Ahmad Kamal from Federal Trade Commission.
Asif Tabrizi from Asian Development Bank. Shahid Kazmi, PHF.
Usman Munzur, UNDP.
Fuz Ahmed from NAST. Tariq Said from NAST.
Amira Adil from NAS. Abia Babar from NAS.
Tangiri Fawadiat, NDRMF. Raja Rehan Shaji, advisor to NDRMF.
Okay, we have several other colleagues on the back as well.
Barbara Glavi
Sabi from PHF.
Okay, rest of the faces you know, these are from NDRMF, very ably supporting all of you. So thank you very much. Or basically, maksad jo hai wo it's very simple. There's a little bit of a background. I'll just give you the background and then get along with the core business of today's meeting. So CoP28 around the corner. We're starting the activity slightly late. But nevertheless, it's never too late. So in a couple of weeks ago, there was a board meeting, and we're very fortunate to have Sheikh Saab around here today as well, and he was also in the board meeting, the board of directors of NDRMF, where there was an extensive discussion which actually took place about how Pakistan is preparing itself for the COP, and given the importance of the event, the mega event. And some kind of concerns were actually raised that maybe the level of preparation or the magnitude of kind of a coordination which might has been happening, it wasn't evident, at least not evident to the board. It wasn't evident to the many other stakeholders. So the board basically directed NDRMF that we should support the Ministry of Climate Change in taking this forward. There were some other decisions taken as well regarding the COP itself and how we are supporting the Ministry of Climate Change. But then one essential part of the decision was that NDRMF should support the Ministry of Climate Change, given that they are overly engaged with a number of international assignments and the pre-COP sessions. So there are genuine capacity constraints with the Ministry of Climate Change. So in that background, the board of directors basically directed us and asked us that we should take up this task and we should start creating a kind of coordinating the different actors and the stakeholders who are active and who can be very effectively engaged in the COP process. We all know that from our backgrounds, the history of COP or rather COPs, and yes, they have their own kind of nuisances, but at the same time, it's a wonderful opportunity for any country to take the benefit. You never get on the face of the earth that all the global stakeholders and very targeted audience from around the world under one roof over a period of 10 to 14 days. So these kind of opportunities don't arise very often and very frequently. They are just annual galas. And so that's the purpose of it. So we started translating and implementing the board to see immediately after the board meeting. And we had a number of bilateral discussions with the PHF and similarly with other partners and ministries and some of our advisors who have been advising us and a broad set of stakeholders. So we have actually created a little bit of kind of a mobilization before actually bringing all of you today in here. So this is a background, and so we have worked out, established a kind of a program for run up to COP or pre-COP, what it can be called, and we are working extensively right now on the during the COP agenda as well, during the COP program as well, and for that as well. I think this is going to be a part of a discussion today as well, and the subsequent meetings which are going to be having, how we can leverage ourselves and the government partners. Many of you have those kind of international representation, be it Islamic Relief, Muslim Hands, Asian Development Bank, and similarly others. So we basically want to invite you and request you to support us in kind of creating those engagements and partnerships at the international level as well. The pavilion is being established, is being set up right now, and which is good thing. We're going to we'll be having a kind of a physical space there. That of course is available and accessible to all of the Pakistani COP participants. But at the same time, it needs some level of coordination that it's not like that anyone can go anytime and start holding their events. So we're working on that with the Ministry of Climate Change, and we're trying to negotiate at least 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, which is allocated to us. And we basically hold the events in those 2 hours, and we engage all of you and provide you the space for this. In addition to that, colleagues in NDRMF, those who have been working internationally, including myself, and we are very actively engaged with international partners and trying to find the slots in the official COP events as well as the other events and a number of other kind of activities which actually do take place at the COP. Apni lingo mein main kehta hu it's a big circus, so there are opportunities to show ourselves there, and so not all the time bad things, and so I think any COP is a good opportunity, but this particular COP, because of the regional proximity as well as being held in UAE, as well as the agenda, the way it is kind of firmed up, the agenda, and that is also, and then the UAE government, the presidency actually have been kind of an approach they have taken to for the conduct of the COP as well. So inclusivity is a big and solution orientation is a big slogan of this particular COP. So we want to take benefit from all these areas. There is a big kind of a hype going on. This is a transformational movement in the evolution and history of COPs. Well, Kyoto was a transformational movement as well, and Berlin was also. I happen to be actually part of all those transformational movements. So in a way, I'm a little bit kind of immune to these words. I've seen many of them coming and passing through. So, but let's hope that this ye wali वाक़यातन transformational movement हो और इसमें वाक़यातन loss and damage fund भी हो जाए और financing scale up हो जाए hundreds of times, and then technology transfer के ऊपर कोई अच्छा mechanism आ जाए. Article 6.4 and 6.8 become fully operational and functional, and I can go on and on and on actually. So transitional committee loss and damage key meeting is still going on. We have actually read the minutes of it this morning collectively, and we have seen the kind of complexity of issues they are actually grappling in the transitional committee. So it indeed is a big show and a mega show, and what we want is इससे हम क्या फायदा हासिल कर सकते हैं. So this is the purpose of it. There is no kind of a structure for today's meeting, and I'll just ask जो हमारे बुजुर्ग हैं उनसे कि वो थोड़ा सा एक सेट कर दे kind of a माहौल, और उसके बाद फिर हम डिस्कशन को let the discussion evolve. So there's an element of improvisation, you know, there's a principle of improvisation which we want to actually apply here today, Sheikh Sir, with your permission.
So I'm honored, and offended by Bazil. But that's a fact I cannot escape.
Exactly. So इसलिए मैंने ये risk भी लिया.
And so long as I am alive, no matter how hard you try, you can never try that. Having said that, is there anyone from Ministry of Climate Change?
Right.
तो जिस घोड़े पे हमने राइड करना है वो यहाँ पे नहीं है, या जिसकी तनाबे पकड़ के आपने खिलाना है तो उसको होना चाहिए। लिहाजा पहली रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि इसको इस तरह से रिकॉर्ड करें तो उसमें इंटरेस्ट ले सकें।
सर को आज सुबह तक हम फॉलो अप कर रहे थे।
सवाल एएस के बाकी है नहीं बोल।
ठीक है, वो उनकी अपनी लिमिटेशंस को। दूसरी बात ये है कि एक आपने फाइनेंसेस की बात की थी, स्केलिंग आपकी, पहले मैं उसका जिक्र फिर मैं आता हूँ मेरे ज़हन में जो एजेंडा में 2-3 चीजें थी। इस वीकेंड पे मैंने एक शादी अटेंड की, तो मुझे लगता है कि इंटरनेशनल क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस इज लाइक शादी का खाना। लोग यूं भर लेते हैं, एक 2-3 प्लेट उनसे खाई नहीं जाती और ज़ाहिर करके फेंकते जाते हैं, फिर और लेकर जाते हैं। The country's more important issue is your absorptive capacity, spending capacity, judiciously spending capacity, purposefully spending capacity, with transparency, accountability, and impact assessment. It's not making a heap of goshti botiyan shaदी का खाना। And मुझे लगता ये है कि जो साइंटिफिक फोरम, जो एक्शन ओरिएंटेड फोरम्स हैं, वो ये बात ज्यादा करते हैं कि ये और पैसे कहाँ से हैं। मेरे ख्याल डिस्कशन के लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हुए, हमारा फंडामेंटल क्वेश्चन है कि जो है वो कम है। वेयर आर वी स्पेंडिंग, हाउ वेल वी आर स्पेंडिंग, हाउ बेस्ट टू स्पेंड। भले वो जीसीएफ को 100 बिलियन देंगे ना देंगे, उनके पास अगर 10 बिलियन भी, तो हम तो उसका भी 500 बिलियन एक्सेस करने की बात करें, उनको पर्पसफुली स्पेंड करने की। ये जो बात है कितने ज्यादा सर्कुलेशन में होने चाहिए, फॉरेन ऑफिस पे छोड़ देते हैं, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज पे छोड़ देते हैं। हमारा क्लाइमेट, कम से कम मेरा क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस में उतना ही इंटरेस्ट है जितना शादी के खाने में हो सकता। हाँ भाई, आपको भूख उतना डालो, उतना खाओ। मुझे एक कंट्री डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर दे कि उसकी एब्जॉर्प्टिव कैपेसिटी या $500 मिलियन की, तो लाइनें लग जाएंगी। तो ये फाइनेंस के ऊपर तो मैं सिर्फ आई एम अ बिट dismayed by our eroding capacity to purposefully spend international finance and our own finance. एक तरफ हमारे यहाँ fiscal space बहुत limited है। Now there are 2 or 3 issues that will be very core issues that the COP as far as I have followed, and there may be many others आप जो seriously follow कर रहे हैं। एक ये है कि COP has been hijacked by fossil fuel industry, और जो डिबेट थी पिछले COP तक तक, वो थी कि जी लेट्स फेज आउट फॉसिल फ्यूल्स। उससे पहले जब थे ग्लासगो में, तो उसमें कोल की फेजिंग आउट के ऊपर बड़ी हीटेड डिस्कशन हो रही थी। तो वो डिपेंड होकर अब यहाँ तक आ गई थी कि जो उसको तो हम जल्दी से बंद नहीं कर सकते, मगर फॉसिल फ्यूल की फेजिंग आउट की जाए, क्योंकि वो आप चाहते हैं कि जी प्लेटो शुरू हो जल्दी से 2050 के लिए, 2030 के लिए। जो आर्टिकुलेशन है बाय द चेयर, एंड द चेयर इज नाउ यूई, वो ये है कि इट्स द क्लाइमेट चेंज कम्युनिटी इज नॉट अगेंस्ट fossil fuels per se, but they are against the emissions coming from fossil fuels. Now that's a very, because they're large exporters. So is Saudi Arabia, so is United States. United States is a bigger exporter of oil now than Saudi Arabia or तो ये चीज टेक्निकली तो सेंस होती है। मुझे तो emissions के साथ कंसर्न है, आप जैसे मुझे जो मर्जी को इस्तेमाल करें, मगर उसकी जो पॉलिसी लेवल पे इम्प्लीकेशन जो पाकिस्तान के लिए होती है, वो ये होती है कि जो आपके एमिशंस हैं उनकी ट्रेडिंग हो सकती है कि नहीं हो सकती, उसके एमिशंस का रजीम है, क्या उसके सिस्टम्स हैं, क्या मैकेनिज्म है, कौन सा प्लेस। The biggest implication for Pakistan will be of this debate will be कि पाकिस्तान ने क्या करना है अब इसके बारे में मुख्तलिफ लोगों का हो सकते हैं, मगर ग्राउंड पे जो रियलिटीज है आप उसका पता जरूर कीजिए कि जी वेयर इज योर पॉलिसी, वेयर आर योर गाइडलाइन, वेयर इज द प्रोविंशियल buy-in, what kind of projects you can design, do you have some concern not to do that, have you geared your SECP towards it, or state bank towards this, is there a regulatory mechanism in place? That's a long and complex issue. And very complex because the stakes बहुत हैं, उसके stakes दो किस्म के हैं, and then I'll close. एक stake तो ये है कि जो भी concessional sign करते हैं, that is for 30, 50, 70 years. Yeah. You'll be locking your future for many, many years. फर्ज कीजिए अगर आप अपने canals के साथ forestry का कोई project करते हैं UAE के साथ, उसके emissions calculate हो सकते हैं, हमारी capacity में not be there, but other country capacity में तो वो आपका 70 साल का 50 साल का project है, तो you're done. एक उसका ये impact. दूसरा उसका जो है climate change, चूंकि आप activist हैं बहुत ज्यादा, ये है कि does it mean actual reduction or is climate change is providing another dose of environmental colonialism? तो हर कंट्री में जाके आप उनके, तो 2-3 कंट्रीज में मैं गया हूँ, तंजानिया, ज़ाम्बिया, लाइबेरिया, एक के दो, they have millions of hectares of land, and countries go and procure that concession, 50 years, 70 year concession, और उसमें 2-4-5 मिलियन को कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट के नाम पर डाल देते हैं ताकि जो स्टेक होल्डर्स है ना, ट्रेडिशनल राइट्स होते हैं, these are messy areas, but traditional rights होते हैं articulate में. So there are two questions. One is where is Pakistan's capacity, and second is what will be the actual impact. And impact क्यों है कि वो deferment जो कहते हैं ना कि oil, fossil fuel is not bad. They may be looking at deferment for a few years, a decade and a half or something. That's one issue I wanted to talk. Second, जो पेरिस से चीज निकल कर आई थी, स्टॉक टेकिंग की रिपोर्ट थी. आप में से बाद में पढ़ा होगा, देखा होगा, नहीं तो आप अगर जाना चाहते हैं, एंगेज होना चाहते हैं, I think that's a starting point. Particularly a country that has 35 or 40% population below the poverty line, where many ecosystems are fragile ecosystem and fragility means more vulnerability to climate disasters. यहाँ पे फूड प्रोडक्टिविटी जो है वो ये कम हो रही है, फूड सिक्योरिटी इशू है, पानी की क्वांटिटी या वेरिएबिलिटी कम नहीं करता, तो जो चीजें उसमें लिखी हुई हैं, मुझे याद नहीं उनके 28 या 30 उनके टेक होम मैसेजेस हैं उसमें, all of them are relevant for Pakistan. Some may be more important to big relief, others may be more to somebody else, मगर है सारे के सारे ये दो कोर इश्यूज हैं, और मैंने क्यों उनको दोनों को पिक किया, दोनों की एक्शन ओरिएंटेशन बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है. आपका स्टॉक टेकिंग के लिए जो पाकिस्तान ने बेस्ट एक्शन किया है सिंस द लास्ट वन इज अप्रूवल ऑफ योर अडैप्टेशन, नेशनल अडैप्टेशन प्लान. इट इज प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय अ मिनिस्ट्री दैट हैज अ रोल ऑफ कोऑर्डिनेशन. इसका नाम भी अब कोऑर्डिनेशन हो गया ना, क्लाइमेट एंड एनवायरमेंटल कोऑर्डिनेशन. तो उसका एक्शन जो है प्रोविंसेस पे है. तो वेयर इज द प्रोविंशियल काउंटर पार्ट? एक्शन प्लान आप उसे कह लें, रोड मैप कह लें, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान कह लें, वट एवर टर्मिनोलॉजी यू वांट टू फॉलो. क्वेश्चन यू वर्क इट्स अ डॉक्यूमेंट which has a lot of very important things, but it needs some feet on the ground, and the feet are in the provincial, and in fact, look at the sub-provincial level, district or whatever the local level. एक्शन तो वहां पे होगा ना, किसी भी चीज का, एजुकेशन हो, हेल्थ हो, रोड हो, तो ये दोनों चीजों की एक्शन ओरिएंटेशन चूंकि स्ट्रॉन्ग है तो मैंने उसका जिक्र किया. थैंक यू फॉर गिविंग दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी, एंड दीज आर द टू कोर इश्यूज. और अगर आपके पास 1 घंटा सुबह है तो 1 घंटा शाम को है, और एक तस्वीर में 99 गाने होते हैं और 14 दिन का सेशन है, तो काउंट कर लीजिए आपके पास कितनी अपॉर्चुनिटी है.
Thank you very much, Eksa. And I'm very pertinent questions, and I'm equally sure कि हर एक के ज़हन में इसी तरह के questions होंगे, and that's one of the reasons कि हमारे जो लोग हैं from civil society, from academia, and from government agencies and others, they want to be part of the solution and action-oriented solution. बातें तो ज़ाहिर COPs में होती हैं, you know, we grew up in COPs and we benefited hugely from COPs and बोलना हमने वहीं से सीखा तो हमारी तो रोजी रोटी भी इसके साथ रही है तो हम डिसलॉयल नहीं हो सकते तो हमारी मजबूरी है but everyone else is free to speak. वैसा आप कुछ ऐड करना चाहेंगे?
I think we should hear from the.
I think we should exactly. Thank you very much, Ji. And as I said, there is no particular order. As far as the communication is going and communication is evolving in a meaningful manner, I think this is the modus operandi of today's meeting. Asif bhai.
Thank you very much for organizing this. एक सर माशाल्लाह बहुत मजा आया बहुत सारी रियलिटी की बातें जो है वो यही है एक्चुअली जो आपने जो है वो बयान की हैं तो बिलाल साहब सर्कस बहुत बड़ी है इसमें पाकिस्तान में हमारी लिमिटेशन है इस टेबल के अराउंड एमओसीसी जो है वो मौजूद नहीं है लेकिन एमओसीसी की कैपेसिटी का हमें अंदाजा है रियलिटी है कोई आपके जहन में या पार्टिसिपेंट्स के जहन में कोई 2-3 मेन क्लिकिंग कोई ऑब्जेक्टिव्स if there are those objectives in the minds of the people quick wins we can say because it is an event so we have to define those very brief and then we should work around that so that's my suggestion there are challenges always all the recommendations in the past they are very relevant for Pakistan but what for this year some very quick things on which we should then have a backward planning for engaging everyone on that.
I think that's a good action-oriented question, and we can discuss that. We have few questions today, but we wanted to actually just give an opportunity and come up with kind of a questions or views from the floor. Anyone else? Please.
Right. So I represent Trust Academia. We're not the implementers like IRP, but we partner with implementers like IRP, IRC to make things happen. We're the background workers essentially. So what I gathered from Sheikh Saab and your speech and talk in the beginning is we can help in the showcasing part of our investing capacity because this is something that we're used to doing because we develop technical proposals, technical projects, research proposals and things like that. So not talking about proposals, but I'm talking about the things we already have in prototypes, case studies, success stories. We can use that to sort of showcase the investing opportunity if we were to scale those case studies up to Pakistan, like all of Pakistan. So that is something that Nust can be a part of. Can I?
Madam Shabnam.
Thank you. Coming back to what Asif was sharing, I think it is very important that Pakistan, we need to present case of Pakistan because it is a forum where everybody is around. So our case has to be stronger. What we have observed during the last COPs and the overall globally, how the narrative is dominated. So the narrative is mainly dominated by the mitigation options. Mitigation is important, it is key, but for Pakistan, the issue is resilience and adaptation. So we need to build our case around that we need more financing, more assistance in terms of having access to finance, which is actually could be utilized for resilience and adaptation. So that is the narrative from Pakistan we need to build. Another thing, I think it is very important to talk about and to advocate diversifying the partnership. When it comes to the partnership for climate financing or access to climate financing, it is mainly heavily dominated by the government, which is fine. But we need to advocate diversifying this partnership, the civil society organizations, NGOs, INGOs, local organizations, academia. So they should be part of that partnership. That should be another point. Third is maybe being a little proactive. We need to showcase the investment model. For example, if the financing is coming, what is our model for that investment? I think these may be some of the key selling points when we go and present case of Pakistan. These should be our unique selling points because I'm sure everyone else would be talking about mitigation, and we also need to think about like who is going to benefit, whether it is by default is the private sector because 90% funding, climate funding is going to the mitigation projects. And most of the climate financing is either loans, it is not grants. We also need to advocate like country like Pakistan who already is under debt, under severe debt. We need to advocate for the flexible money, the grants. I think these are a couple of the points we need to build our case around those.
Anyone else? Gilani Sapsan.
Okay, thank you, sir. I would say, one thing which sir mentioned is very important. Relevance versus role, So when we see across the table, you see different, you see, colleagues from the civil society, you see colleagues from the government, you see colleagues from the academia. So one thing which is coming to my mind is when you are representing COP and when you are proportionate to the country, Pakistan, which the threats which we are facing, like Shabnam mentioned very rightly, how we are going to make it, inclusive in a way that we can cover each and everything. And within that, I would say to be seen as a team over there when it comes to the government, the civil society, and the academia, and whatever the other portion may be. So, and how we can devise an agenda based on the need which country is facing at the moment, and to promote the agenda of the climate, on a bigger canvas, So, हम बाज़ औक़ात चीज़ों को डिस्कस तो करते हैं, लेकिन उन चीज़ों को हम स्ट्रक्चर नहीं करते। और जब चीजें स्ट्रक्चर नहीं तो होती तो वो लोगों तक उस तरह पहुंच नहीं सकती। So coming back, I would say, appreciation for Bilal sir every time is team collecting all of us here कि हम किस तरह से एक ऐसा एजेंडा लेके चले हैं। वो जो उन सर ने बात की कि सही अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर अस मे बी के अगर हमें I was calculating around 28 hours is like a very good time, और मैं तो इसको ये भी समझता हूँ कि along with that, if we can contribute to the other provisions as well. So taking our case to the other provisions, like I might be speaking to the French pavilion, I might be speaking to the British pavilion. So कोई और भी इस तरह से हो सकेगा तो then we can sell it in a better way. So this is what I want. But collectively we need to decide how resourceful we are, which topics we are taking forward, who is going to deliver it, but collective as a team and making forward, like Shabnam very rightly said, when it comes to the role, we see the main role is with the government. But what we see as a consortia, a different partner, it is not working in isolation. It is either we have to go with a partnership model, जिसमें civil society, academia, और सबका role जो है वो होगा, तभी जाके हम इसको combat कर सकते हैं. Thank you.
Asif and then Kamal sir.
Kamal sir, please. Sir, thank you. From the ADB side, so as my colleague mentioned about the other pavilions, ADB ने अपने DMCs के लिए जो हमारे developing member countries हैं, so we have two pavilions at COP. One is dedicatedly by the ADB, and second is basically joint MDB's pavilion. So starting from our vice president, then from our president, and then vice president, and then up to the DG, DTG, and then the whole family will be there. The key question which Sir raised is about the joint venture, and you mentioned in your first initial talk is about how we can extend these collaborations to. At the moment, we tried our best with the MOCC. So far, we have not received the list of even delegation because this is highly important. Our management is going to be occupied and almost occupied. Our vice president have only 3 days. He will arrive on 3rd and will leave at 5. So we may not be able to manage a slot for Pakistani delegation to meet the vice president. How fast we can just, consolidate the delegation list, the high-level delegation list. So the MDBs should try their best to arrange the bilateral meeting, the side events. following that, as my colleague and few other mention about the side events and other pavilions. So ADB is providing opportunity to the DMCs. So we are collaborating with Ahmed Kamal Saab in FFT and in the RMF. This will be a big event in the COP on the National Flood Protection Plan 4 and basically the telemetry master plan. So it's an adaptations tool which they just deployed, and this can attract some of the financing, even the green climate financing. Similarly, we have a joint event with you to present our completed portfolio. We have another panel discussion on this. And we are trying hard to occupy our management to bring them to Pakistan's pavilion for the events, to share the best practices they are working. Recently, Uzbekistan, I'm in the email thread in which we all, the community, the job family is discussing the COP, and they are too much fast. They have even settled the meeting times, like 10:30 to 11:30 will be the meeting between vice president and with this, or with the VDG to this delegation. We are still not yet, finalizing the list, the event, the timing, the slots. So at the last stage, we will try our best. We will be there at the COP to manage our management, but the slot will be too much short. So my request is to the forum is we should be very fast to finalize and request MOTP to give us the final list of delegation and also this the flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. Kamal Saab.
जी बहुत शुक्रिया बिलाल साहब, thank you very much for arranging all this discussion today. मेरी थोड़ी छोटी सी गुजारिश इसमें ये होगी today कि हमने लास्ट ईयर जो 2022 का मॉनसून फेस किया, उसके बाद जो 27 की कॉप हुई, COP 27, उसमें we were just managing the things and all that. अब COP 28 है तो so much good कह लीजिए कि हमने स्पीड वर्क किया हुआ, उस स्पीड वर्क को एक तो हमें बताने की जरूरत है वहां पे जाके तमाम सेक्टर्स के अंदर, और उसके जरिए हम आगे क्या इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं विद रिगार्ड टू गेटिंग resilience on ground, getting much more better DRR practices placed on ground. हमें इसको थोड़ा सा वहाँ पे जाके बताने की जरूरत होगी. And then I would also share कि last year जो COP थी, we were not a part of that, लेकिन जो कुछ हमने सुना उसमें यह था कि loss and damage पे बड़ा एक breakthrough हुआ है. So this should be taken as perhaps the sort of a subject for Pakistan कि हम loss and damage पे बात करें, और हम collectively जो पिछले 10-12 साल में या 20 सालों में हमने क्लाइमेट के थ्रेट्स को फेस करते हुए चीजें देखी हैं, उसकी बुनियाद के ऊपर उसको वहाँ पे एस्टेब्लिश करें, एंड वी शुड गेट सम सॉर्ट ऑफ एन एंट्री पॉइंट इनटू दैट लॉस एंड डैमेज स्ट्रीम, ताकि वी शुड बी सीन देयर एज द वन जो कि कल हमको डिसीजन मेकिंग में भी हमारा कोई रोल हो इस रीजन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. मैं इसमें फर्दर ये भी कहूँगा कि जो हर साल हम फेस करते हैं कि देयर इज ऑलवेज ए लैक ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन और इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबिलिटी स्पेशली जो क्रॉस बॉर्डर है, तो उसमें क्या हमारे ग्लोबल फोरम्स या ग्लोबल जो फ्रेमवर्क्स हैं जैसे सिंधाई फ्रेमवर्क ऑन DRR, हम उसको क्यों नहीं हाईलाइट करके कहते हैं कि जैसे हमारे इंडिया से या अफगानिस्तान से या फॉर दैट मैटर फ्रॉम एनी अदर हमें जो डाटा नहीं मिलता, हम उसके लिए कोई ऐसी शुक्रिया बहुत शुक्रिया तो ऐसी कह लीजिए कि वाया मैकेनिज्म करवा लें कि जो कि बाइंडिंग हो जाए फॉर द सेक, नॉट फॉर द सेक ऑफ, फॉर द सेक ऑफ द कम्युनिटी, फॉर द सेक ऑफ द लोअर रिपेरियन. अभी थोड़ी किसी जगह पे बात हुई टूवर्ड्स दैट एंड मैं ये समझता हूँ कि देयर इज ए नीड ऑफ कोलैबोरेशन ग्लोबल, फिर वो डाउन स्केल हो रीजन, और फिर वो डाउन स्केल हो नेशनल लेवल के ऊपर टूवर्ड्स जो हमारे क्लाइमेट प्रोजेक्शंस हैं, जो टेम्परेचर वेरिएशंस हैं, इन सारी चीज़ों के ऊपर हमारे अपने सिस्टम्स तो हैं, महकमा मौसमियात के भी सिस्टम्स हैं. How well the existing technology and the existing facilities at the regional level or at the global level can be best brought to Pakistan using the communication, new communication skills and setups and all that. ये बड़ा important है और इस context में जितने भी कोई इस किस्म के side events हों, उन side events में हमें वक्त से पहले पता होना चाहिए and we should have अगर टीम 10 लोगों की जा रही है, 12 लोगों की जा रही है, तो हमने किसी एक बंदे को उसके लिए डिटेल दिया हो कि उसने जाके वहाँ पे ये बात करनी है, उस बात के ऊपर रिजल्ट क्या आता है नहीं आता, वी शुड नॉट थिंक अबाउट के क्या हमें मिलेगा, वी शुड रेज दैट वॉइस। दूसरी चीज ये अबव ऑल इट इज ए मैटर ऑफ बड़े अफसोस की बात है कि आज हमारी जो मिनिस्टर ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज यहाँ पे नहीं है एंड NDMRF इज कंडक्टिंग दिस ऑल ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ एवरी, तो मैं कहूँगा कि इसमें दिस इज हाई टाइम NDMRF or the chairman of the board should approach the Minister for Climate Change. उनको आज की मीटिंग का भी वो आप बताएं और उसके बाद उन्होंने कहा कि जी अगर तो we are serious towards that, तो फिर हमें इस तरीके के साथ आगे चलना चाहिए और उससे जब आगे चलना चाहिए तो उनके साथ आप एक सॉर्ट ऑफ पूरा प्रोग्राम भी लेके जाएं और ना सिर्फ प्रोग्राम लेके जाएं, अगर इस तरह कोई साइड इवेंट्स वहाँ पे ऑलरेडी हो चुके हैं उनको आप मार्क करें कि हमें इन साइड इवेंट्स के अंदर हमें शिरकत करनी चाहिए और हमें इस तरीके के साथ शिरकत करनी चाहिए। ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ द टाइम हमारे नेशनल और सब नेशनल लेवल के ऊपर वट एवर द गुड प्रैक्टिसेस व्हिच वी हैव गॉट, वट एवर द गुड प्लान्स व्हिच वी हैव फॉर्मुलेटेड, हमें उनको बाकायदा लिस्ट आउट करना चाहिए और हमें उनको प्रोजेक्ट करना चाहिए कि आए ये वो चीजें हैं जो कि नेशनल लेवल पे तो आप करेंगे पर एट लार्ज रीजन के ऊपर इसका बड़ा अच्छा इम्पैक्ट आएगा। देयर आर फ्यू मोर पॉइंट्स जो मैं चाहूंगा, इसमें मैंने टेक्नोलॉजी की ऑलरेडी बात कर ली है और नेशनल अडेप्टेशन प्लान ऑल्दो वो प्रोबेबली बहुत हमने जल्दी में तैयार किया, देयर वर मैनी मेरा ख्याल है कि उसमें गुंजाइश बहुत ज्यादा उसको बेहतर करने की, वी नीड टू प्रोजेक्ट दैट एज वेल और उसमें से जो अडेप्टेशन के जितनी भी हमारी कह लीजिए कि हमने उसमें शॉर्ट मीडियम और लॉन्ग टर्म के ऊपर रखी हुई हैं उनको हम अपने डिवाइड करें प्रोविंशियल वुलनरेबिलिटीज के ऊपर और फिर उसको अपस्केल करें नेशनल लेवल के ऊपर, वहां पे जाकर उसको प्रोजेक्ट करें टू गेट द फाइनेंसिंग एंड ऑल दैट टुवर्ड्स दैट। मेमोसिसी की मैंने बात कर ली, आपने ऑब्जेक्टिव्स की बात की, तो ये चीजें कुछ उस ऑब्जेक्टिव्स का हिस्सा बन सकती हैं। नस्ल की तरफ से जो अभी वो आई एकेडमिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, इट इज अ वेरी गुड सजेशन, it should be a very important part and parcel of the objective list. Then वो भी बात हुई थी that we need to build our narrative around resilience and adaptation, and आपने दी थी very true, हमें इसी के ऊपर जाना होगा। मिटिगेशन में हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट प्रोबेबली वो नहीं है जो किसी दूसरी कंट्रीज की, जो एडवांस कंट्रीज की होगी, अगर उसमें हम थोड़ा सा पीछे भी रहते हैं तो डजेंट मैटर। हमें अडेप्टेशन इसलिए जरूरी है कि हमारी कम्युनिटीज मोस्टली इलिटरेट है, हमारा लिटरेसी लेवल बहुत कम है और उसमें अगर हम अडेप्टेशन को एट लार्ज कम्युनिटी लेवल के ऊपर जाके प्रोफेस करने की कोशिश करते हैं थ्रू सम सॉर्ट ऑफ देखे और नेशनल प्रायोरिटीज, तो इट विल हैव अ फार रीचिंग इम्पैक्ट एट दैट लेवल। थैंक यू।
Thank you very much. Please.
Saying from last, sir, I would like to speak on the use of technology. It is growing trend towards usage of AI and satellite imagery and these technologies for precise quantification of forestation, deforestation patterns, carbon emissions, and we have done a couple of projects in collaboration with WWF. Serena Hotels and AKRSP. I think our best chance is when we demonstrate our capacity on the use of technology in these areas. And there are a few projects that can be used in this COP28 event.
Sure. काजमी साहब आप कुछ कहना चाहें? बोलिए।
इसी में से मैं थोड़ा सा नस्ल की तरफ से और ऐड करना चाहूंगा, जैसे सर ने बात की कि हमें अपना स्प्रेड वर्क शो करना चाहिए। लाइकवाइज डॉक्टर फारिक ने जैसे कहा कि हमने जो प्रोजेक्ट्स किए हुए हैं एकेडेमिया में, लाइक इन नस्ट एंड अदर यूनिवर्सिटीज में, वो प्रोजेक्ट्स जो कि हमने सक्सेसफुली कंप्लीट कर लिए हैं, रादर दैट हम उस फॉर्म को जाके गए कि हमें पैसे चाहिए, हमने ये काम करना है, हम मर गए, कर गए, हमने ये बताना जी कि हमने ये काम कर चुके हैं, ये हमने कर लिया है, आप हमें फंडिंग करने हैं तो इन मद में करें, ये हमने काम किया, हम ताकि हम जो इक्विपमेंट है लाइक बहुत सी जो पाकिस्तान में लोग इंडिविजुअली काम कर रहे हैं, अदर हमारे नस्ट में एक स्टार्टअप है रैपिडिव के नाम से, वो ऑलरेडी इस पे वो भी प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं स्टार्टअप। पाकिस्तान से बहुत से लोग जा रहे हैं, या ये मिनिस्ट्री लेवल पे जाके हमें पता होना चाहिए कि कौन कौन से लोग जा रहे हैं, ताकि हम एक फोरम बन के एक पाकिस्तान को रिप्रेजेंट करें, रादर दैट एक कंपनी प्राइवेट सेक्टर में अपने तौर पे जा रही है और गवर्नमेंट वाले अपने पे जा रहे हैं। तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर में बहुत से लोग ऐसे हैं जिनको हम भी जानते हैं, आप भी जानते हैं, जिन्होंने काम किया हुआ है, और जो प्रोडक्ट्स एक्चुअली जो बनी हुई है, रादर दैट हम प्रेजेंटेशंस में वो बताएं कि हमने ये काम पॉलिसीज ये है हमारी, हमें ये दिखाना चाहिए हमने ये प्रोजेक्ट्स कंप्लीट कर लिए हैं, जिसका एक इम्पैक्ट हो। वीडियो जैसे आपने बनाई हुई है एनडीआरएमएफ की, लाइक आप नस्ट से कुछ ले सकते हैं, मैंने जैसे डॉक्टर तारिक ने कहा इनकी ऐप है जो कि कहीं से भी लाइव हो सकती है, अगर आप चाहें तो आप यहाँ पे भी अभी भी दिखा सकते हैं। प्लस ये है जैसे मैंने आपको कहा जो रैपिडिव है, वो लोग जा रहे हैं, उन्होंने कुछ अपनी डिवाइसेस कुछ बनाई हैं जो प्रैक्टिकली काम करेंगी, उनको भी आप ऑनबोर्ड लें। ओजीडीसीएल से कल बात हुई, वो लोग भी काम कर रहे हैं इस पे कार्बन एमिशन के लिए, तो आप उन लोगों को साथ लेके चलें। और एकेडमिया में बाकी भी आप यूनिवर्सिटीज को इन्वाइट करें, जिनकी प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वो प्रोडक्ट्स ले गए।
Thank you. Ideally, it would have been good if some rep from MSCC should have been here. But we are doing, on behalf of UNDP, I would like to mention that we are doing so many things with MSCC, but I think it's an opportunity to inform everyone here that's what all we are doing. And many things will be probably coordinated for CoP28 side events. So on loss and damage fund, Amit Kamal sahab ko point aage main leke jata hu. We are already working on the, as you most of you know, that the Global Shield Secretariat has been established at UNDP. And we are working closely with the government on loss and damage fund and providing them technical capacity as well as policy support, how to take this forward. Our colleagues from our headquarters and regional office are already in close collaboration with, with the relevant officers at the MCC. Secondly, on private sector engagement, we are already, we had a number of meetings and we are already proposed to the private sector to, because they're very much interested in holding side events. The purpose is to engage the private sector on carbon markets. So certain TORs were established, were developed, and a carbon market was supposed to be established under those TORs by the private sector, and this launching event probably is being coordinated with MSCC and one of the side events. So a number of meetings held. Probably you might get a chance to discuss with them, as you are also holding an event on 24th in Karachi. On youth, we work closely with, along with UNDP, UNICEF, UN Women, and Ministry of Climate Change, and registering youth across Pakistan. 1,600 youth got registered with us, and we had organized 8 events in various cities across Pakistan. And the purpose was to first provide them technical knowledge and training through various online events. And then now these 8 events are over, and now the final event will going to happen in Islamabad. And after that, 8 to 10 youth filtered out from this whole process will be taken to the CoP28 event. The most important thing is that we talk a lot about accessing the fund and how we can access this fund from Pakistan, but especially how we are able to engage the provincial governments for that, because the implementation lies with the provinces. So UNDP has been working closely with the provinces in engaging in through NDC implementation process. NDCs and LTS, the long-term strategy. So in Punjab, we have already been able to get notified the NDC implementation committee, and since it will be notified probably today or tomorrow. In Balochistan, we are helping them in developing the climate change policy. The only province left with no climate change policy, and probably the third committee will be constituted there. So the purpose is to engage the provinces and provincial departments in identifying all those projects and priority areas through which the international financing is required. We had a provincial consultation process last quarter of the last year in all the provinces, and we were able to identify 59 actions across Pakistan costing $2.3 billion. that were needed to contribute towards the NDC's targets. So this is one of the report that could be projected at COP, in which it could be mentioned that this exercise was happened through a process. And now we have placed ADB has also placed international and climate change specialists. We have also done the same thing. So probably those climate change specialists who have been deployed at the provincial department, they're providing them the policy support, the technical support, as well as helping them in developing the project proposals. Finally, I would like to mention here that under the LTS support, UNDP is working closely with the Pathways 2050. It's a Paris-based organization. GIZ also is thinking about working on these lines. So what we are doing is we are trying to assess the capacity of all the provincial government departments. That how will they be engaged in delivering on NDCs, LTS, and NAP. Alongside the gender capacity assessment and agricultural and energy department is also being carried out. Based on the findings of the assessment, a robust implementation plan will be developed, which will help the provinces to deliver. So there's so many things are happening. So I don't know. I think there is a need to involve the MOCC people so that everybody's on the same page that what needs to be showcased at COP28. Thank you.
Kazmi Saab, last words. Can I conclude this and we'll move to the next phase?
Thank you. मेरा ख्याल है कि टेक्निकल साइड्स पे बात हो चुकी। शेख साहब ने बड़ा समराइज किया स्टार्ट के पूरी स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट सिचुएशन ने बताई, जिसके ऊपर थैंक यू बिलाल सर स्पेसिफिकली फॉर टेकिंग लीड ऑन दिस, क्योंकि एक्सटेंसिवली बीएचएफ और मेंबर्स एंगेज आपके साथ ऑलमोस्ट सिंस द मंथ। मेरा ख्याल अभी जो एज वी रियलाइज्ड डाल के अब टाइम तो वाकई कम है। What I realized at the Ministry of Climate Change level के due to might be absence of a regular ministry या जो leadership होती है उसकी वजह से शायद वहाँ पे जरूर काम हो रहा है। ऐसा नहीं है कि काम नहीं हो रहा, जिस तरह अभी उस्मान कह रहे हैं कि बहुत सारी चीजें हो रही हैं, बहुत सारी मीटिंग्स हमने भी अटेंड की। लेकिन अभी कोई एक जरूरत ही है कि हम whatever we are going to do in the COP, either in the both areas, जो आपका पॉइंट नंबर 3 है बेसिकली कि गवर्नमेंट को कैसे प्रिपेयर करना है कि how we can guide and support the government in the COP, कोई efforts को coordinate करने के बाद आपको उसको consolidate करने की जरूरत है। तो I would suggest you कि maybe you can talk to ministry। Last जो हमारी meeting थी बड़ी fruitful थी, उनके साथ promising थी कुछ चीजें, लेकिन we should have a committee, maybe at least comprising on the one representative from different actors who actively engage in, और वो कमेटी ओवरसी करे उन efforts को जो वहाँ पे हो रही हैं, जो हमारे एजेंडा सेटिंग हो रही है सारी, उसको हम देख सकें और फाइनल कर सकें। और अल्टीमेट लास्ट ईयर COP27 फ्लड्स डोमिनेंट थी, पाकिस्तान में फ्लड का केस था, क्लाइमेट जस्टिस की बात हो रही थी, बट आई क्वाइट एग्री विद कोलीग्स शबनम और आसिफ की जो रेजिलियंस और अडॉप्टेशन की बात है हमारी, हमने उसको लेके चलना है। और उस एजेंडा के ऊपर कैसे डिफरेंट जो हमारी वहाँ पे दुकानें बनती हैं सारी, हम उसको या डिफरेंट लोग तरह तरह की बोली बोलते हैं, तो वो उसको कैसे स्टैंडर्डाइज किया जा सकता है। बहुत सारे इवेंट्स हो रहे हैं, आप देख रहे हैं कि धड़ाधड़ डेली ईमेल्स आ रही हैं, इनवाइट्स आ रही हैं, प्री कॉप कंसल्टेशन, जॉगल्स तो बहुत अच्छे हैं, हर कोई यूज कर रहा है, प्राइवेट सेक्टर एंगेजमेंट की बात हो रही है, एकेडेमिया की बात हो रही है, लेकिन जो सबसे बड़ी जरूरत है ऑन दिस सब्जेक्ट, आई थिंक एक कोऑर्डिनेटेड एफर्ट्स हैं, someone has to take lead, and I think you are in the best position and we are here to support you. Thank you.
Last comment if you allow me. मुझे लगता है अगर मैं वो नहीं बोलूंगी तो वैल्यूएट नहीं होगी, तो let me come in. I think ज़ाहिर है this is the forum, तो वहाँ पे projects भी showcase होंगे और best practices भी showcase होंगी, but the bottom line is how we present Pakistan's case, जो मैंने पहले भी बात की। One thing which is quite missing in the global narrative is the comprehensive risk assessment, risk mapping. अगर आपकी risk mapping नहीं की हुई, आप उसी के basis पे ज़ाहिर climate finance के allocations करेंगे ना, तो पाकिस्तान अगर risk mapping में already हम कहते हैं कि index में top पे है, तो if there is a comprehensive risk mapping, based on that we can negotiate for the climate financing for country A, B, and C, and this is how we present our case. That was the last point of risk mapping I wanted to.
Sure. Okay, I don't want to take away the opportunity from anyone who wants to speak. You from NUS?
Yeah.
NUS is pretty dominating, huh? I must say that.
Very passionate. Please go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, it's really good to know, actually. I mean, it's really good and you are very well prepared and, you know, you want to make a difference. Please, Sarah, please.
Please go ahead.
Thanks very much. I'm Sandra Baldwin from FCDO, and thank you very much for inviting us, myself and our colleague Nadine, who's actually our COP28 lead in the office. I'm really sorry we came in so late. It was we couldn't avoid that. I think we're still in the general comments point here, but I just wanted to say a couple of things. I know the transition committee is meeting this week, so we hope that actually we're all going into COP28 in a much stronger position once they get through their deliberations. It's really important on the stock take on Paris for the first time. It's also the first time oil and gas sector is actually there engaging with us all at the table. There's two things I wanted to mention, if I could, just in terms of UK's position. And of course, you know, we're very much supporting you here. I won't go into that. We hope that there will be some outcomes which will be beneficial, of course, for all of us on the global goals, particularly on adaptation, the adaptation framework, and increasing finance to those countries that are most vulnerable. And I think just to mention on the finance point, a lot has been said already around the table. We're very, very strong on supporting the Bridgetown Initiative, the transformation and reform of the MDBs, particularly on longer-term strategies at country level. We're also looking at the diversification of climate finance to bring the private sector out and build pipelines. And we're supporting you here in Pakistan, we're building those pipelines for green finance diversified with the private sector. And on loss and damage fund, I know this has been key. Pakistan launched this COP27 very impressively, and I know we're both very much hoping for an outcome which is going to benefit those that are most vulnerable. For us, it's really important that we get diversification of the sources of that and the eligibility so that those who need it most can benefit most. The third point, of course, is on energy transition. There are a number of areas where the UK is trying to sort of exert more influence. I won't go into that now, but thank you again for having us at this table.
Thank you very much.
I don't know whether my colleague would like to, if I may, I'm sorry, sir.
You covered most of it. Just to mention that UK has formed a task force on finance. The task force was set up at the first Climate and Development Ministerial. The ministerial is happening again on 29, and the task force has around 5 pilot countries, developing countries, that how they can improve their access to climate finance. So at COP, we will be doing a side event at our UK Pavilion and sharing the learning from that process that ran for about 3 years as how to improve access, how to facilitate the number of public sector windows available, how that's what can be simplified. So there will be some announcement around the outcomes of the task force at COP.
Wonderful. It will be the last one.
I would just like to add on what Ms. Shabnam said about the investment model, because we at first said as well that we need to talk about where the money is going, that the money that we are receiving. I think there needs to be transparency in the investment model to attract even more funding, because right now we cannot keep track of where the money is being invested that is already coming into the country for climate change related projects. I would also like to talk about and add on to what Amir said about the role of academia for COP, because the political situation in Pakistan is unstable. Even right now, we have the interim government. So the government keeps on changing, but the academia is stable. It doesn't change. So I think academia can act as a higher education partner for the government for COP and do the background work and provide evidence generation that is needed to hold the global north or the polluters accountable to get the climate finance. And lastly, everyone talked about technology transfer. I think we should also, for Pakistan's narrative, we should also talk about the technical capacity transfer when it comes to carbon markets. Because a lot of the people here are working on green projects or even a plantation activity, but they're not aware of carbon credits, or if they are aware, they're not aware of the process. So that needs to be mainstream so that more people can take advantage of it, because I think that's a faster way of receiving climate finance instead of relying on loss and damage fund, which may take years to even establish, and then accessing it is even longer, because even with GCF, it takes 6 to 7 years to actually get money from GCF to do something. Thank you.
Well, that's a bucket full. I have to recall my skills when I used to support the UNFCCC negotiations, and the party would just keep on talking, and then we have to sum it up in a matter of minutes. We were also skilled, actually. We come out with our own kind of a version as well, but I don't do that here. Okay, no, I think thank you very much. Thank you for very frank and kind of opinions and views, and giving some suggestions, and sharing the wonderful work which is being carried out by different organizations and everyone else. So we are actually converging to the objective of this very first kind of interaction which we held. Well, first of all, I want to kind of mention that the Ministry of Climate Change is very much on board. We are holding this in consultation with the Ministry of Climate Change, in agreement with them, and they are really thankful for NDRMF to kind of supporting them in this juncture. So it's not like this, their absenteeism shouldn't be kind of considered that they are not interested in the process or anything like this. We're just, we thought that, okay, we might have the resources, we might have the kind of support structure in-house, and so we do it for the Ministry of Climate Change, and they are generally busy in a number of other initiatives, and similarly Foreign Office as well. I mean, we don't know about that. So our promise to you is that this is going to be transferred to the Ministry of Climate Change in the somewhat consolidated fashion, and also kind of take a step from here and go to the Ministry of Climate Change, and then help them to kind of consolidate this into some kind of a narrative, some kind of a positioning which they want to take at the COP level as well. So just want to make it very, very clear. They are our colleagues, and they are very much interested and part of this whole process. Now, I think wonderful suggestions, and I'll just take it. Maybe we'll come to kind of more practical items first, and then we go slightly into more theoretical or kind of an intellectual level of discussion. And I really want to challenge you, especially on the mitigation versus adaptation. There's a very clear stance actually, which have evolved in the room, that okay, we should be focused on the adaptation, and the mitigation is not our problem. I personally might not completely agree, and the NMF might not actually agree with that as well, because we have infused and incorporated mitigation very strongly into our own work program and the business strategy which we are working right now, for very solidified reasons as well. Because if we're talking about financing, just from financing, I can really pin it out to so many different angles and so many different issues. If we say GCF, 50% in mitigation, so why would we like to close our doors for 50% of the funding of GCF? So we are left with the 50% of funding, which becomes even more incredibly competitive. I think we shouldn't. And secondly, our population is growing. We have industrialization kind of aspirations. Our carbon intensity for our productivity is not one of that great in the world. Actually, we are a very polluted country, to be honest. No? So there is a mitigation potential, quite significant mitigation potential in the country, and I think we shouldn't be closing our minds, our brains towards that direction as well. And this is what NDRMF is actually, realizing this, and we are moving ahead with that. Energy transition. You're talking about technology transfer and technical capacity. I think energy is the best kind of a vehicle for technological transfer or technical capacity. So there are so many ways. I wouldn't really completely rub it off without actually saying that, okay, yes, our urgent and ultimate need, at least for the time being, might be the adaptation. Yeah, and we must focus on that, and we do that. And secondly, another kind of a related point is, and I'm sure Sheikh Saab is going to support me on that, is who stops us for cross-cutting projects? there are beautiful projects in the world. There are wonderful examples. I know I can even recall from the top of my head from Africa and Caribbean, other places where adaptation and mitigation, they were very nicely and they were leveraging each other in a one single project as well. So I think, there are number of opportunities and, NERST, academia, and similarly other organizations. I know Aga Khan Foundation was working on these off-grid small renewable energy projects. Anyway, so I think that should be kept live on the agenda, and that's very, very important. Now, Sheikh, you want to add on this?
I just want
Please.
to, if I may,
Please.
I fully want to endorse that the division between mitigation and adaptation is more superfluous now. When the convention was signed, it made some sense, but now our understanding is much more sophisticated. That's one. Second is the World Bank and all MDBs now have a methodology that emphasizes on co-benefits. Most of GCF financing look at the projects and prefer those projects that articulate and quantify co-benefits. 2 points in this regard. First, we want to see what is Pakistan's status of mitigation. Even though our policy committed categorically that we prefer adaptation, most of the financing came in mitigation. And please remember that 51% of Pakistan's emissions come from agriculture, and industry, and 49% that come from industry, transportation, and others is not the majority. And because the cost of doing business goes up because of inefficient energy uses or inappropriate energy uses, that is paid by us and particularly the poor. So I just wanted to underline the importance of Pakistan to prioritize mitigation, especially in agriculture. And then that's a low-lying fruit. And also it has co-benefits in job creation, in helping protect our adaptation or ecosystem. So you are spot on. You need to be very clear that this distinction doesn't really exist in real life anymore.
Saban, thank you very much. I need a slightly more additional support, Raisa, from your side as well on this. I really want to hammer down this point.
Well, thank you so much, Bilal. As Bilal as well as Fakir have pointed out, this division is now almost gone. And whatever we are doing at the small scale or the large scale, consciously or subconsciously, that we are working both on adaptation and on mitigation. And we do have to remember, if you look at the SDGs, mitigation is for sustainability, but adaptation is for resilience, and resilience and sustainability go together. We can't achieve one without the other. So it's not an either or that we are going to be looking at. So the narrative should not be focusing on either this or that. I think that the narrative needs to focus on both, because we want to move towards resilience. That's the immediate and short-term objective, but sustainability is the medium to long-term objective, and both are needed for resilience and sustainability. The second is, and I keep on hearing this, and I think that's important from both adaptation and mitigation, such great islands of success that we've heard in the practical field, in the technological field, and in the academic field. But one thing that is coming out, in which I feel is in the days left to the CoP28, something that needs to be brought together, and this is where the IMF can help MOCC and the government, is to really bring all these islands of success together in a common narrative. I'm hearing all this, and I feel even NDRMF is not aware of all the great work that is happening, let alone MOCC or others. And I think that's where it needs to be brought together. But it can only be brought together if we have some level of standardization. What I'm hearing over here is apples and oranges, and it's impossible. There was mention of tracking all this. It's impossible to track if you're tracking apples and oranges, because then you cannot present a narrative which is going to be consistent, which is going to be credible. And in order to present a credible narrative, you have to have some standardization for data collection, and then tracking it, and that can only be part of an MD system where the standards or the business standards, as we call them in the industry, those are issued from the government because they are the regulators and they can only regulate if the business standards are consistent. And then the tracking can be done, the monitoring can be done. So I just want to add that I have a number of other points, but I'll come in later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raisab. And let me put this, a bright red cherry on the top of the cake as well. Moving forward, all these our fund implementing FIPs, fund implementing partners, Islamic Relief, Muslim Hands, and many others. So part of our funding is going to be related to mitigation moving onwards. So, gear up yourself. If you want funding from us, I think you have to consider mitigation, integrate mitigation as part of your work programs as well. So I think, okay, after having kind of making it so attractive, the other objective is, I think Asif have started off very well, and he said, okay, what are the quick wins? And we share our opinions, me and Asif Saab, very frequently, although sometimes principally I'm against the principle of the idea of quick wins. When talking about resilience, when talking about adaptation, when talking about climate action, there are no quick wins. And historically, we haven't been able to achieve any either. So I think we have to come out of that kind of a mindset as well. Everything is long term. And so this is something, and we are actually showing this by doing it as well. We actually adopted our approach in kind of a show and tell kind of. I know in schools in Britain, and when my children went for it, there's a program. They say that you bring a toy and show and tell everyone what this toy is. So we are actually applying a very similar approach, that show and tell, and we actually showing and telling to our government partners, our stakeholders, and everyone else that, okay, if you want to achieve the resilience, you have to work on a long-term agenda. And there is absolutely no shortcuts, no other way. But nevertheless, I think for this COP28, I think everyone's spoken about it. I think NAP is a very good instrument in our own hands right now, although some of the legwork, like investment framework or financing or prioritization of the sectors, that hasn't been completed yet. But nevertheless, I think we can take that document and we can actually tell to the world that, okay, this is what Pakistan needs, and we are working on several areas under the NAP. So that might be one particular area. I think similarly, the carbon financing or the carbon market and the role of the private sector, I think this is coming out very, very promisingly and very strongly. We are also engaged with the private sector. As you mentioned, we're holding this event on 24th in Karachi with the private sector. So that's also one area. We have our NDC, which hasn't been implemented yet. And I think that need to be has to be taken out of our drawing, our kind of draws, and actually take and kind of spread it out and show it that, okay, this is something which we need to do. There's a mitigation component, there's an adaptation, there's a technology transfer, and there's a number of other areas as well. And I think somebody mentioned about, I think it was Tuki Sheikh Saab, mentioned about this locking in. And so there's absolutely no harm of actually showing and telling to the world that, okay, look, there is an opportunity for us, be it adaptation, be it agriculture or energy transition. If we are not able to kind of support ourselves, then we are going to put ourselves in locking in situation for a number of years. A coal power plant or any fossil fuel power plant have a lifetime of what, 50 years, 30, 40, 50 years minimum. So this is the time span which we are talking about. So I think there is absolutely no harm in actually building a narrative on it. If a hand is stretched to us, then we can actually be a very reliable and a partner of choice to show that, okay, we can reduce our mitigation of our emissions, and then at the same time we can safeguard our agriculture as well, and energy transition, number of other areas. So I think the pieces are there. And what Shabnam mentioned about the investment model, I think there is a kind of overarching work which needed to be done and which hasn't been done yet. But I think that basically is an investment model which we're talking about. I very passionately, and we are actually about to initiate that work, Kundi, if I'm not mistaken. I'm very passionately, actually, I always say this. I happen to be leading the work of drafting the first NDC of Pakistan. And in parallel, we get the exercise done from PIDE at that time, that what is the marginal abatement cost for different sectors of the economy. And I was actually blown away. And this is something which I've done my entire life. I've done the marginal abatement cost curves from Zambia, for Lesotho, for Barbados, and many other countries. And I was saying this, and I happened to be living at Mauritius at that time, and Mauritius was actually saying that, okay, it's a tax haven. So I started actually calling that Pakistan is a carbon investment haven. And if we take it seriously, because the abatement costs for so many different sectors, be it transport or agriculture or industry or several other sectors, it was marginally considerably lower as compared to even some of the countries in the region, even Bangladesh and other countries in the Asian region as well. So I think that's part of, this is something which we are calling the investment model or the investment framework, which basically pulls the investments into the country. And sadly, this work has not been done so far. Again, I know, and again, there's a work being carried out by FCDO, and that actually again provided some very good insights into it, which of course can be put together before the COP, and some kind of a presentation or even a small documentary can be put together. If you allow, we can do it from NDRMF side. We basically show it. So it's not going to be, Shabnam, it's not going to be very consolidated in the investment framework, investment model, but it's, at least it shows that there are opportunities for investment, and different actors and the stakeholders can actually absorb that kind of investment. Now, the third point is, which is very, very practical point, is a number of events are happening. And I think in the spirit of coordination and collaboration, I think we need to come with a mechanism where we each actually complement each other and build a kind of a momentum in the country. So NDRMF have a number of events scheduled, and of course we have our own capacity constraints as well before the COP. And then secondly, we of course want everyone else to take the lead as well in their own spheres, in their own domains, and where we can just kind of provide the support. You can use our premises, this office belongs to you, and you can use maybe some of our human resources as well. And other ways where our people can come and they can participate in the events and they can talk and they can spread them. So I think moving ahead, maybe we set up a core team, and that core team actually start consolidating the events and the success stories, and then in the subsequent interactions like this, we actually make kind of a consolidated decision that, okay, what information products, knowledge products, whether this project from NERST, for example, I'm just taking an example, it can be best and effectively communicated in a brief or in a short movie or in an interactive session or something like this. And similarly from UNDP and other organizations as well. So I think as a practical step, we can take that and then let the process guide us. Bismillah.
Sorry, whenever you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
I needed a break anyway. I was looking for
Thank you very much, Ji. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And just we had a very rich conversation over here. One reflection and then sort of a practical proposition on the table. Reflection is the following. There are questions we need to ask closer to the COP, and there are questions we need to ask after the COP. So we have 10 months of reflection. We don't reflect when we're going to the COP. We have 10, 11 months that we need to do before that. I've been doing maybe 10, 11 COPs by now. We always have these sessions, and I think there's about 4 or 5 planned in addition to this one by other organizations.
Nobody has a post-COP event. Nobody really says, what is it that we now have to take forward from here? We go, we showcase whatever we do, show and tell, we do all those things, but we don't circle back. So I would really request NDRMF, whoever else is involved, and the other stakeholders, we've been doing this long enough. Now let's do it differently. Let's really mean it. Jab hum capacity ki, technical assessment ki, all the questions that are raised around whether the money is a lot or whether we can spend it properly, that can we spend it properly is a question for January 2024, not for right now.
Not right.
So let's just keep these two things separate. Now, how can we spend it properly? And I've heard everybody in the room talk about, we have case studies, we have stories, we have AI, which I will have a separate conversation with you on, and a bunch of other things, floods mein hua, humne resilience show ki, all of those are great stories. But the world does not revolve around Pakistan when you go to a multilateral event when there are 195 other countries talking to an agenda. How many of us over here have looked at the CoP28 agenda, the official agenda? I've just heard about side events. I've just heard about the pavilion. I've heard about all those things that happen outside the negotiations. The core mandate of a UNFCCC agenda is the negotiations internally. I don't know if you guys were listening to Sarah closely, but she gave her country position on the loss and damage fund. She said that we are looking to diversify the contributor base, excellent. And she said that they're looking at the eligibility criteria, who needs it the most. That's a country position on where the loss and damage fund UK would like to see going. I've just not heard that clarity from where we're going to have that conversation. I heard we need grants, not loans. Do we know that there's a whole agenda on the NCQG, which is the collective goal that's being decided after 2025? We keep talking about the 100 billion. Climate finance ke andar, there's a negotiation on the NCQG, which is what will that 100 billion figure look like going forward, given what we have learned. The conversation is not just about loans versus grants. The conversation is also about private sector versus the public sector. The conversation is also about basing it on the needs. The needs say that the developing countries will need $2.3 billion $2.3 trillion annually, 2030 onwards.
Yeah.
So where will that number come from? How will it be measured? How will it? So there are a lot of questions, not just about, which is fundamental. The loan and grant conversation is absolutely fundamental. But let's not take our stories and pretend that the world is listening. The world was listening last time because it was a super flood. The world will not be listening to you right now. Yes, it's the TC's meeting right now. There are a lot of technical conversations on the table. We can't pretend that we will take case study and people will listen to us. So let's try and look at what that multilateral system is discussing. I'm a fan of privatization because there are 100 things on the agenda right now. We can't pick on everything. Let's prioritize. Let's look at what we're negotiating and let's support the negotiators. You spoke about the carbon market. How many of us actually know what the problems in the voluntary carbon market are right now, which should help influence the 6.4 and the 6.8 conversation? Have we spoken to Maple Leaf? Have we spoken to FFC, who are trying to put a proposal together through a consulting company in Pakistan to get their credits, go through the Vera standard or the gold standard to get the certification? We don't know. We're not talking to those people. I'm glad you said that Karachi mein, you're speaking to the private sector, but what are the questions that you're asking them, which will actually influence the negotiations on the 6.4 and 6.8? So let's try and not have one-sided conversation. Let's not focus on just side events in the pavilions, which is great, absolutely, 100%. But it also needs to have relevance with what the world is discussing, not what we want to do. Thank you.
That's very good point.
Thank you. I would like to, add what Kishwar has said. So in COP, I think from COP26. So there's a realization that the climate governance and response need to be different now. So there's a UNFCCC mandated conversation and that triggers certain actions in the official space. But from COP26, there's another thing emerging, so sectoral coalitions, thematic coalitions, that the countries coming together to solve the problem, which is, we know that UNFCCC processes are longer,
the census space. So for example, and there are opportunities. For example, Pakistan has joined climate, climate and forest leaders partnership, which now turned into a 6 policy stream supported by a number of programs that UK is supporting. And currently, US is there, Pakistan is founding members. So that kind of opportunity that Pakistan should capitalize, should bring their priority. In the last meeting, Sherry Rahman said we need support in forest fire, for example, in that meeting. We also have Energy Transition Commission, ETC, which Pakistan is a member. But out of ETC, the 4 countries have graduated and received just Energy Transition Partnership, a certain critique on jet fees. But that's another way of getting big chunk of finance coming into the country. We also offered Pakistan to join Acceleration to Zero, which is e-mobility campaign, which Pakistan didn't join. They can join anytime. So there are a number of sectoral coalitions where Pakistan and with support of like you, the government can participate and take benefit out of because every time with the sake of like administrative reason, many of the ministerials are lined up. So we will extend to invite to 3 or 4 ministerial invite to Pakistan. Whoever the club or the committee you form, we're happy to coordinate with them. Pakistan minister, really participate well and contribute to that ministerial event that are coming during the COP. They're not mandated negotiated event, but they are big coalition.
Important, yeah.
Apologies for taking the floor again, but what Nadeem said triggered again and also what you put on the table earlier, which was adaptation versus mitigation. Again, we Pakistani, we like locking ourselves in an or situation. It's absolutely an and situation, sir. I completely agree with you. Not because it makes a climate sense, but it makes business sense right now, right? So it is it's the transition. It's very clear. Thanks to the technology, the investments that China did, it's now cheaper to create 1 megawatt of energy from solar than coal, right? There is an energy transition happening outside the climate conversation. And just in terms of opportunities, yes, so there's the negotiations, but then governments have tried to open up this whole conversation outside the negotiations, primarily mitigation focus. You will hear a lot of conversation around jet fees, the joint energy transition partnerships. One of the first has been South Africa, which is a bunch of countries just adjacent to the negotiations. They've signed a $5.8 billion deal with the government of South Africa. Senegal is in line, Indonesia is in line, China, India is in line. So you have a bunch of these countries starting to coalesce around mitigation finance, which is, again, what's your story? We can talk about investment and all those things over there. So let's just be very clear around where those opportunities are and how they align with you, as opposed to here's my story and everybody should listen.
Yeah, no.
Just Blossom,
yes,
I just want to add one point. It's not about mitigation versus adaptation or resilience. It is like bringing the agenda of adaptation and resilience on the table, because it is dominated by mitigation. The countries who have power, the agenda and the discussion is dominated by those powers, and for those countries, mitigation is the agenda. So countries like Pakistan and many other countries in the world, for them, mitigation is not a priority problem. So it is not about this versus against that, but alongside mitigation, we need to build our case that, okay, look, we need resilience and adaptation financing as well. So that was the point. It's not about this.
No, understandable. Qazi Saab.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm honored here to be here. I would agree with the madam that it's been long, quite 7-8 years. The mitigation agenda was on the top list in policies and in the planning. But right now, I think it needs to be more geared towards adaptation. The second thing is when we talk about the loss and damage and other financing, and we talk about being in the list of the countries who receive funds. But at the same time, we see that we are not in the list of any vulnerable, group in the world. like V20. We are not a part of that group. So being on the watch list, German watch list is not enough to receive funds. So in this COP, I think we should also raise this question alongside the ministry. So we could, make ourselves part of any of the vulnerable groups in the world.
Thank you.
That is something we were talking about.
No, I think it's very focused conversation. And somebody who has sat in similar meetings before. So if we watch Netflix movies 11 months and then a night before the exam, we say, we panic. But at least this is one thing was refreshing for me. Instead of portraying ourselves as a poster boy, it's an old story now. I was very happy to hear from my younger colleagues. We can showcase these success stories, these small initiatives that we have done, despite our limitations. And I think that's a very important message. On other issues that were raised, and the very important issues, we don't know what the government position is. I've never seen a technical paper, a study or something on many of those issues that were mentioned. But probably what if you are engaged or those who are engaged with Ministry of Climate Change and others, if they were pavilion, so instead of spending all day waiting for the minister to come and speak to his own Pakistani audience in the pavilion as results happened every other COP, it would be much better to internationalize our events.
Yeah.
And some of those issues there that have been mentioned on this table, maybe some events can be organized on those, And I just wanted to point out two more small things quickly. I think somebody's comment, I think from ADP, was absolutely critical. You need to know in advance. The world doesn't wait for you. And I've seen way too many times, a night before you learn the prime minister is going or not, and 2 days before it, and the jockeying who will be in the delegation, and that's not right. At least civil society need to designate, announce, and conduct your own meetings here or wherever you wish to, and then negotiate with the government that you need a few slots in the space. I think, ma'am, I was very impressed with the NUST interventions.
Yeah.
All of these are very focused, and your core point is absolutely critical. Academia offers long-term space for partnerships. For example, you mentioned on climate financing, spending, tracking the spend. Maybe there's a room for a partnership here. It can be, it can be done. And you mentioned several very, very important things. So I think I would like to meet you guys separately as well, but it is absolutely honor for me to listen to your interventions, all 5 or 4 of you. Absolute honor.
They're everywhere.
Absolute honor. If academia, if young people who are equipped with science, if they can help us streamline our thinking, I think that will be remarkable. That will be very, very important for us to going forward. I want to pick one point from Netflix. We may have watched movies for 9 months, but I think soon after, we need to have a reflection exercise that has already been mentioned. And important is not truly COP. It has never been. These are intersessionals. That's where the key decisions are discussed and negotiated. And this is only a fanfare for this. So organizing events along intersessionals is very important. And I have attended some, and I can tell you that they are much more transparent than these. Why? Because this meeting is happening, people sitting in the room, I was civil society, and listen to the conversation. And because the size is smaller, you can engage with the policymakers, you can lobby with them, you can give your argumentation, you can give your one-pager to them, and that's far more effective to raise some of those issues that we are raising here. And I think for way too long, we have ignored intersessionals.
Thank you very much. Kashmala, thank you for raising a number of points actually, and you're absolutely right. Negotiations is I'll come back. Negotiations is a core part of this, and that's why everything else is circus. But anyway, negotiations are circus as well, frankly. So I think the challenge is that all these learned people and refreshingly intellectual and intelligent people, they have been effectively sidelined from the negotiations, from the code of negotiations, and not only during the intersession of the COPs, but anything pre or post or anything like this. So I think a certain level of education is just not there. Any pre-session or any intersessional or any COP, it leaves hundreds of decisions. Even those people like us who have their living affiliated with this, even we cannot cope. We actually select finance or our kind of cherry pick anything like that, and that's it. Otherwise, become very, very difficult. So I think this kind of a core or fundamental knowledge base is missing, and we realized that, we internally discussed that, and we said, okay, we have taken up this task, and this is how NDRMF actually does things. Then of course we're going to take it forward, and we are actually after the COP as well. We're going to. I was actually very much interested. I used to do it when I was in the Commonwealth with African countries, a training for the negotiators. And wonderful, wonderful training. I benefited when I was in the UNFCCC Secretariat. We used to go to Geneva and get trained and refreshed every second year. Yeah. So I think that would have been a very wonderful opportunity. But I would really like to do that for civil society. Now, yes, I mean, all those are real kind of attractive, sexy issues. Sarah mentioned about this breakdown initiative. There's a wonderful discussion is evolving over there, and I think many of us are not really, we're not knowledgeable about it, what is happening, and how it's actually going to impact a country like us. The entire MDB system. Even a person like Asif Turangzai has to reorientate and re-educate himself, because that's going to be the kind of a magnitude of the impact on it. Now, Ismaila, you also mentioned about post-COP, I was reserving some of the things to announce at the last part of, to create a wow factor, but you have stolen away that opportunity from me. That's fine. That's fine. I have been. Yes. So, I mean, I think many of the firsts which NDRMF is actually doing and taking the kind of opportunity which has been kind of embarked on us. One is, and I was trying extremely hard, the National COP28 website comes live. It didn't happen, but it's being prepared somewhere over there on the other side of the building. And we should be announcing it early next week. And we have put quite a heart or soul. My colleagues have put heart or soul into the design of it. So it provides the basic information, the knowledge, the history and evolution of the COPs. There's a discussion forum or a thread room there as well, where you can actually make decisions. It is going to be attached and linked to the COP agenda as well, the UNFCCC agenda as well. And then when we are over there in UAE, and then the kind of interaction, then the events and everything else which is happening, that's going to be live streamed through this website. So and we are putting a lot of effort on the design, look, feel of that website as well. So we'll send out the beta version by Monday, Tuesday, and seek your inputs, but you will have to provide in a matter of hours so we can actually bring it live, and then improvements can actually happen over the period. And that website is going to remain intact at least for a year until COP29, and then we'll just change from 8 to 9, and then it becomes COP29. And so I think similarly, private sector, again, we are very effectively engaging with them. And we are actually, there's a lady, our research analyst, she's working on the CDM carbon assets in the market in Pakistan right now. And then actually, this is my own pet project. I'm working on an online conversion tools, I call it calculator, and which basically you put your project parameter into it, and then it gives you whether your project is eligible under
Okay.
Article 6.4 or not. And I had to refresh my Excel skills, which I learned in my university, and a couple of nights ago, and actually it works. I put some dummy data, and it does work. And
Sectors or?
yeah, but I think so. This is based on the data which Kundi and Fawad they are collecting. So we might not have to actually do it for all the sector. We only do it for the sectors for which the CDM projects are there. So the carbon assets which are there and which can transition to this Article 6.4, and they become very automatic, and their value increases quite tremendously as well, and this and that and everything as well. So that's one of the first which
Is the calculator going to be open source?
it's going to be open source. Yes, I mean, you know, it's I don't think there's anything. There's no fancy about it. It's a simple kind of formulas I created, and so it is. You know, anyone can actually replicate it and make it. You know, I'm sure the university is going to apply their best minds, and they're going to make it more sophisticated, and then hide it maybe, which I won't allow. Pay service.
Nice to have, many of you may not know, and working with your colleagues, will be probably Pakistan's first university that's trying to go next year.
Net zero, yes.
So they are already in the
Yes.
process, and I'm very honored that I'm working with them.
Yeah, so I think there are a number of these kind of initiatives, and I don't call it kind of we are doing things differently. I mean, there's no kind of innovation. Pakistan में वैसे भी थोड़ा सा you have to be kind of सैफुद्दीन सैफ का एक बड़ा मशहूर शेर है, उसने कहा था सोच के अंदाज बदल जाते हैं वरना सैफ दुनिया में कोई चीज भी नई चीज नहीं. I'll translate you for you later. It's just becoming a little poetic. So I think I'm cautious about it, not to call it differently or anything like this, but just to have a new flavoring on it. And similarly, number of other initiatives, number of other kind of supporting tools and a mechanism which we are bringing into it. Yes. Anything else? But I think we've come to the practicalities of it and concluded. But Kazi Sahab,
Sorry, thank you very much, sir. I was actually wanted to draw your attention towards GCISC's role. When we talk about data and mapping sizes, then I often I've seen that we don't have representation. When we had a meeting in the ministry, there wasn't anybody from GCISC over there, and we were highly talking about data collection and mapping sizes, and that is, I think, supposed to be the specialized agency. It is working alongside the ministry. So one thing, and second is that when we do events at Blue Zone, Pakistan, pavilion, we don't see any global personality like any scientist like Michael Eman or David Attenborough or somebody like that coming in our events. So can we do this this time when we conduct events over there at Blue Zone, so that these personalities not only bring attention from the scientist community and from the donors as well over there, but also will add value towards us, Pakistani, people, to learn more about them from them.
sure, no, definitely. GCISC, I mean, let's be selective. We cannot solve all the problems of this country just in about 40 days. So I think we just cannot do it. We have to be selective. We have to be set our priorities very correctly and rightly, and do the best what we can do. There are element of sensitivity involved as well in it. So I think you made a good point, and definitely we will try to bring some global figures into our pavilion, into our events. Yeah, in my previous life, I actually wanted to bring David to Mauritius, and he asked for 75,000 pounds. I happen to not have that kind of money. And then then it didn't happen, but I'm sure that he's going to be there, and then we can actually have some global figures actually. And I was talking with Shabnam on the other day. David Miliband is going to be there, and who is a global kind of a figure in his own capacity, and similarly many others as well. Personally, Sheikh Saab ne wo Netflix ka itni dafa ka. Personally, I would like to have Brad Pitt and Emma Watson as well. My events. I mean, why not? I mean, they do attract quite a lot of attraction.
Maybe Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie, yeah. So sure. So I think.
But you'll get your Pakistani minister only.
She was here during the flood response. Shabnam was with her.
Yes. So I think kind of moving ahead and wrapping this today's conversation. So what we do is, so we're going to set up a core committee with Kazmi Saab, and my colleagues are going to be interacting with you. We're going to take the representative from it. We're going to go to the Ministry of Climate Change, and we'll ask, and we kind of get some kind of a firm commitment as soon as possible, preferably by early next week, Monday, Tuesday, in terms of delegation and everything else that you mentioned, all of you. We share and each other's events. We promote each other events, and we try to actually participate into each other events as well. I think it'd be really nice if kind of an agenda is also kind of shared, and it some kind of a coherence is brought into the agenda. And people say that there's a risk of who's talking what, but the challenges of this country are kind of so standardized for such a long period of time. So the room for drift is very little actually, and so I don't think this is any genuine risk actually. So I think this is what we do. And secondly, am I missing anything? Kundi, for what? What else we need to do now?
No, before you leave, you will be required by the comms team for a while. There's a group photo and about people who want to about people with today. So these two things. And then the core committee meetings, which you just mentioned, so that we can come up with some narrative by next month and jointly present in a meeting where MOFA and MOCC will be present.
Yeah, and we are actually planning to have an event by soon after, like mid-November or 21, 22nd or 3rd of that time space, a kind of a national level event here in Islamabad with a heavy online presence, and where all these activities kind of culminate into that event, and some kind of coherence agenda actually evolve from there. There's a lot of wishful thinking, but I mean, why not?
And the outcome of 24th will also be part of the core meetings.
So outcome of the 24th, I think anyone who wants to join us in Karachi, we are actually engaging, Sheikh Saab is coming, we are engaging with the big corporates as well as the small companies as well at a very high level. So I think that's focus on carbon markets.
Two things. One is the financial instrument, including FDI and State Bank, part of the leading that, and then the corporate side, which again works on two different sides. One is the compliance market and the voluntary, and those who identified net zero targets on themselves, and the others who intend to do it. Because there will be certain mechanisms where private sector will be required in different of the transport network. And on a side note, we're also inviting private sector, which will not be going into carbon credits, but improving the processes for reaching the emission reduction targets. So that's from the 24th.
That's for 24th. And then number of other seminars, and which the core committee is going to set up a small worldwide WhatsApp group. But I hope the website is going to become the single tool, and it provides you all the information and allow you to kind of put up your own events, your own activities into it. I have been thinking very hard about the design of the website, and met several times with our design team, and they were here. Now they are putting together this website. So
wonderful news, in fact.
I think if I'm not mistaken, actually I did a Google search. I think that we might be the first who have a national CoP28 website. in the world.
It is.
Tishmala, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
So,
Brilliant initiatives, yes.
thank you very much. But anyone wants to?
Oh, I had a point, okay, irrelevant to that, but you guys pointed out a lot about the business perspective of the mitigation side of it, and I can present the climate perspective. There's this website called drawdown.org that presents a list of 100+ solutions ranked according to how many gigatons of carbon dioxide they remove from the atmosphere. And number 2 on their list of solutions is health and education, which removes 68.9 gigatons of carbon equivalent between 2020 to 2050. So I feel like repackaging our adaptation and mitigation can also be an option for us if mitigation is the way that we want to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's your wise word.
I think you did it.
No, thank you very much. I think you are needed in the other room.